Good morning. Many people the world over are thinking about the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. We've sung about it. Joseph has mentioned some things that are entirely appropriate. Early Christians, the earliest Christians, remembered the death, burial, and resurrection of Christ every first day of the week, which to them was the Lord's Day. And that precedent was set as much as anything by the idea that Jesus was raised on a Sunday, and every first day of every week, you have a remembrance of the rich blessings that we have through Christ Jesus. I'd like to go back to Joshua, though, this morning. The members of this church are in a Bible reading program through the Old Testament. And in many respects, Joshua of the Old Testament and Jesus of the New Testament have some major connections. Even the name is essentially the same. Yeshua is basically the same name as Yehoshua, and those names mean the Lord saves or the Lord is salvation. At the end of his journey of life, Joshua challenges his own people, the Israelites, who have engaged in a military conquest of the land of Canaan and are situated in the land of promise, the land that God had promised their forefathers. In chapter 23 of Joshua, he challenges the leaders of Israel, and it's a fantastic chapter. I would urge you to read that entire chapter on your own and just ask yourself these questions as you're reading it. What does God say through Joshua that he's done for them in the past? What does God promise his people to do for them in the future? What does God then expect of them? And why does he expect it? And if you ask those kinds of simple questions and read the entire 23rd chapter of Joshua, you may come out of that with a much greater appreciation, not only for what God had done for the ancient Israelites, but for what he has done for you as well. Then, with the entire nation, essentially, there's this covenant renewal at Shechem. And Joshua then challenges the people of Israel going forward, what kind of loyalty or allegiance will you have? How will you identify yourself? How will you define yourselves as God's people on this land of promise going forward? And he essentially challenges them to make a choice. In verses 14 and 15 of chapter 24, he says, "Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. And if it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." The Bible teaches that we have freedom of choice. It also teaches that our choices come with consequences. And so, in his stirring speech at the end of the book that bears his name, Joshua challenges his people to make a choice. Choose for yourselves this day today whom you will serve. The operative word serve is used 16 times in this chapter alone. To serve God means to fear Him, to obey Him, to worship Him and Him alone. There can be no neutrality. Human beings are incurably religious, and they will inevitably end up worshiping someone or something. When we reject the God of heaven, there is a vacuum, a void that must be filled somehow, some way. And Joshua clarifies the alternatives here for his people. If it is evil in your sight to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods your fathers served in the region beyond the river. There are many people who participate in hand-me-down religion. Israel's forefathers were idolaters. Look no further than the covenant agreement between Laban and Jacob in Genesis 31 and the accusations of stolen idols. Rachel is implicit in that. Many people have a strong desire to cling to their heritage, to their roots. Family pride may be involved. And that's not entirely bad. As traditions are handed down from grandparents to parents to children and so on, there is some good in that. The Apostle Paul urges Timothy to make his own the faith that was first dwelling in his grandmother Lois and his mother Eunice, and he said, I'm sure it's in you as well. 2 Timothy 1 and verse 6. There are sometimes very good qualities that are handed down from parents to their children, and children should be open to receiving those things. But to perpetuate ideas blindly from generation to generation and to accept those things without questioning what we receive is not a good quality. It's not admirable at all. The Samaritan woman at the well of Sychar tried to derail the force of Jesus' words by using religious differences to drive a wedge between the Samaritans and the Jews. Our fathers worship God in this mountain, and you people say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus would have none of it. In fact, he says, in neither place will be the focal point of worshiping God. The focus now shifts to whom we worship and how we worship rather than where we worship. But what this woman was saying is essentially, basically, we are what we've been taught. Like a general preparing his troops for battle, Jesus warned his disciples with appalling vividness of inevitable confrontation that receiving the gospel would involve. In Matthew 10, beginning with verse 34, he says, do not think that I came to bring peace to the earth. I came not to bring peace, but a sword. I came to set a man at variance against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. He who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. He who does not take up his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. Divine truth would act in the world like a chemical solvent separating, dividing, even creating bitter hostility. In Matthew 10, verses 21 and 22, Jesus says, brother will deliver brother over to death, father his child, children will rise up against parents, have them put to death, and you will be hated by all for my sake, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. Truth will alienate people, especially when they reject the religious beliefs of their parents, held near and dear for generation after generation. The Apostle Paul asked the question, have I become your enemy by telling you the truth? Galatians 4 and verse 16. In 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 4, Peter raises the issue of separating one's moral behavior from what it once was and losing friends over that. They think it's strange that you no longer walk with them according to the same example of licentiousness. And they malign you, he says. 1 Peter 4 and verse 4. They make fun of you because you don't party like you used to. Second and third generation Christians are also susceptible to this. There are a whole lot of second and third, fourth, and fifth generation Christians who go through the motions of their parents, forefathers, in automatic pilot, using all the right words and phrases, having an appearance of godliness but denying the power thereof, 2 Timothy 3 and verse 5, on the basis of what's good enough for mother and father is good enough for me. Absolutely is not the case. You need to investigate the truth, and when you have found it, you need to buy the truth at all costs and not sell it, to own it, come what may, no matter the consequence. Contemporary religion. The gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. Choice number 2. The Amorites, the Canaanites, they were an ungodly bunch. We made the point recently that God would not destroy the Canaanites from off of the land of Canaan until the iniquity of the Amorite was full. Genesis 15 and verse 6. They were already immoral when God spoke those words to Abraham, but they had a ways to go until the stench of their ungodliness, inhumane atrocities was absolutely full, and God had had enough. So when the Israelites took the land of Canaan and did not utterly exterminate the pockets of resistance of Canaanites, they became a thorn, as Joshua warns in Joshua 23, in Judges 2. I am the Lord your God, Exodus 20 and verse 2. You shall have no other gods before me, Exodus 20 and verse 3. The Amorites not only worshiped false gods, they gave themselves over to the most degraded forms of immorality and inhumanity. Leviticus 18:21 and following had warned the Israelites, you shall not give any of your offspring to offer them to Molech, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am the Lord. The idolatrous fertility rites of that day and age included infanticide. How could parents burn their little children to death? It's beyond me. But we have an example of that in what the king of Moab does In 2 Kings 3 and verse 27, a little over a year ago, Andrea and I took a trip to Tunisia, and there's a famous ancient city there, Carthage. There's an archaeological park at Carthage in Tunisia where archaeologists have discovered the burned remains of little children in mass. Later on, the worship of Jehovah God was perverted at Dan and Bethel by King Jeroboam I. He used some of the right names couched in the wrong actions. Golden calf worship was part of the idolatry and perversion of Exodus 32, even at the foot of Mount Sinai. After they made a golden calf, they ate and drank and rose up to play. There was perverted activity associated with this idolatry. How could the Israelites have been blind to the obvious? The answer, in large part, is they wrapped up their lives in the lives of other people who embraced these philosophies. As such, they succumbed to the pitfalls of peer pressure. Rather than being otherworldly, they became like chameleons. They compromised. Elijah would challenge the Israelites at Mount Carmel in 1 Kings 18:21. How long will you go limping between the two sides, the two opinions? If Baal is God, serve him. If Jehovah or Yahweh is God, serve him. Contemporary religion doesn't look like this today so much. There are some very base, perverse elements that do. More often than not, it looks more like this. There are many cultural magnets that would draw us away from the purity of the truth of Jesus Christ. Popular culture includes many magnets that would pull us away from the truth of Jesus. You see them in the sports world, the entertainment world, the educational world, the work world. Fads come and go. We must not succumb to the latest in thing, and that includes the latest fads in pop religion. In their Madison Avenue approach to evangelism, so-called megachurches specialize in marketing to the widest possible audience and tend to give people whatever they want. You want club quality music? Come here. You want entertainment? We'll give it to you. Watered down preaching? Fine. Experience driven Christianity rather than truth driven Christianity? Come and find it here. Ken Woodward says of Newsweek says it tends to be a guilt-free, sin-free environment. These places are a bit too bubbly. It's very chummy. With God, sin has really disappeared from the pulpit. We don't offer you a quality of carnal experience here, or at least we're not trying. But we're trying desperately to offer you truth. The time will come when they will not endure sound teaching, Paul says, but having itching ears will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions. 2 Timothy 4 and verse 3. Jesus says in Matthew 7:13 and 14, enter by the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and easy is the way that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many. For narrow is the gate, and hard is the way that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Matthew 7:13 and 14. We're studying Proverbs on Wednesday nights. Proverbs 14, verse 12 says, "There is a way which seems right to a man, but its end is the way to death." On the other hand, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding." In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Which takes us to Joshua's third option. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. No idolatry allowed. The worship of the one true and living God. The acknowledgement of Jesus as the Son of God, who died for our sins on a cross and is now risen from the dead, so that we might have a hope that transcends anything that this life offers us. And all over and against what is traditional or contemporary in terms of inherited religion or contemporary religion. And this means conviction. Choose this day whom you will serve. Conviction, it's publicly stated, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Can you say that with full conviction? No closet convictions there. In the Gospel of John, chapter 12, verses 42 and 43, we read, "Nevertheless, many even of the authorities believed in him," that is Jesus, "but for fear of the Pharisees, they did not confess it, so that they would not be put out of the synagogue." There was a lack of moral courage. For they love the glory that comes from man more than the glory that comes from God. In Deuteronomy 30, verse 19, Moses challenges the Israelites not so many years before Joshua does the same thing. When he says, or God says through him, "I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessing and curse. So choose life in order that you may live, you and your descendants." When we understand that this is based on personal conviction, strong conviction, we're not talking public opinion polls or wherever the winds are blowing. This is not something you just happen to fall into by accident. Serve the Lord in sincerity and truth, Joshua says in verse 14 of chapter 24. And he challenges the Israelites to put away the gods of the Amorites in verse 15. That means to get rid of them, to serve the Lord in sincerity and truth. But it not only means conviction, it's personal. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. This was not secondhand faith or borrowed convictions. Why would you allow someone else to do your most important thinking for you? Would you allow outside influences to control your family life? Joshua accepted his responsibility as spiritual leader of his family. And yet, how many parents these days are derelict in their duty to do the same? Ultimately, you cannot serve God by proxy or turn over your responsibilities to someone else. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And finally, there's an urgency to this. Choose yourselves this day whom you will serve. In Acts 24:25, Governor Felix told the Apostle Paul, "Go away for the present. When I get an opportunity, I will summon you." As far as we know, that opportunity never came because the opportunity was standing right in front of him on the day that he rejected it. In 2 Corinthians 6 and verse 2, Paul says, "Now is the acceptable time. Now is the day of salvation." Choose this day. There's one decision in life that you cannot put off indefinitely. It is not enhanced by yesterday's victories or tomorrow's good intentions. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. William James said, when you have to make a choice and don't make it, that is in itself a choice. And it really is. If you tell me I don't have enough information, then let's have a study and get you the information that you need. If you tell me this isn't worth my time and priorities to make the decision right now, you've essentially made a choice, at least provisionally for the present moment. And if your life should come to a screeching halt, then that choice will seal your fate. Edwin Hubble Chapin said, "Tomorrow may never come to us. We do not live in tomorrow. We cannot find it in any of our title deeds. The man who owns whole blocks of real estate and great ships of the sea does not own a single minute of tomorrow." You make your choice today. And you say with Joshua right now and right here, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And if you need to make that determination, make it right now as together we stand and sing the song of invitation.